To access list elements, we can use the dollar sign, but the dollar sign only works with named variables. Since we have no names, let's learn how to add names to lists. And the first thing we do is we check some interesting properties of our list. We check the structure of our list first. And we see we have a list of 6. So now we can assign names to my list. And for this, I'll simply assign the object name, that is X, Y, my math, DT, and the likes, the objects that we added to the list. And that will be used as the names of the individual elements of my list. Okay, now that we've done that, let's dive back a bit and let's investigate one of the results which was given. Let's go back to the results of the structure of my list. Now we see X, and that's because it's been named, as we included the name here. Initially, there was no name. And we see that it is empty here. Let's check this result. But now that there is a name, you see that the name is in front of each and every one of them. That is X, Y, my math, DT, and so on, as we have here. Now, if you see this, we see that structure is showing us how each of the objects that are in the list are organized. You can see here that we have int, and X is an integer, Y character, then my math. Take a closer look at my math. It's an integer. But what is the next thing we are saying? You see that next to each and every one of the objects, we see their dimension, that is their rows and columns. And for X, we simply have 1 to 10 with no comma. So it's an object with one direction and dimension, as is common with atomic vectors. It's having no comma. Or if we look to my math, we see that it's having a comma with a 1 to 5 and then 1 to 2. And here you start to wonder, what is 1 to 5? 5 is the number of rows and 2 is the number of columns. So it ranges from 1 to 5 and from 1 to 2. For data frames, it gives us the structure of the data frame itself. If we check the structure of data frames, let's take our data right here and pass it into str. We see that the results that we have here is exactly the same thing that we have here. We have 10 observations of 2 variables, then the column X and the column Y. Now to my object, we see it's a character and a single character object. That's why we have this next to it without a dimension. Then the last thing is type of, and you see it is recognized as a function, type of function. So using the structure function, that is str, is very, very important and crucial for your research workflow, as it shows you the underlying properties and the characteristics of the objects and data you're working with. Now let's move back to accessing lists, since we've already named the list. Now let's see if we can access them. Okay, we have the dollar sign here, and once I press tab on my keyboard, I have this. See the names of all the objects popping up, and for this, you see that you have the data frame printed nicely. Also, you can access type of seen as a function, but once you remove the parentheses, it's just going to release the code. So you see this is actually really, really nice and really important. It's quite a useful skill, that is accessing elements with the dollar sign. Next up, you can use the square brackets. The square bracket is the way to go when it comes to accessing objects, because what you can put here is you can either put the number, that is the index number of particular objects in the list. So I can put in 3 and I have my math, but you start to wonder, do lists have integer number? If you check the length of my list, you see that it's 6, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 objects in my list. That's interesting. So this is something we have to keep in mind when working with list objects. Just know you can access them with an integer number, you can access them with their name, you can access them using the dollar sign, or you can access them using the square brackets. Well, let's take a closer look now at what we've been doing. When I accessed my list using the dollar sign here, we had a nice print. But when I used the square brackets, look at what we have. We have the dollar sign with DT showing here. Then we have column X and column Y. This is something to keep in mind. It's something that will be very useful when we work with the hot list, which we have. So for hot list, let's check the length of hot list. And we'll say it's just 2 objects. We can print hot list. And we'll say we have 1, and 1 contains my list, which is the initial list which we created. And it stopped here. So this is 1. But notice this. We have 1 year, we have 2 year, and this is 2, and 2 is the new list that was created within the list. Okay, back to this. So for hot list, to access particular objects from hot list, we can use the square bracket. Look at what happens. I use the square bracket and I have all the parts of my list which is within hot list. What about if we enclose the index 1 in another square bracket? Is there any difference? And you might think there's no difference, but if you look at it closely, let's take a close look. Look at this. We have 1 here and we have 1 here also, but this one and this one, they're actually quite different. And if you see the one that we have here, you see we always have another square bracket in front of each object here. This square bracket 2, this square bracket 3. And if we look at this place, we just only have the square bracket 1, 2, 3 without the extra square bracket that we have here. This means that we've gone into the list object itself. So now what we can do is we can access any of its objects, and we can do that easily. To do that, actually, we've been given an easy way out from how it is printed. And we simply copy this and paste it here. You should have exactly this result. So this is what makes lists a bit difficult to work with. The number of times that you need to use the square brackets. And that's why looking at how it is printed would help you and guide you in accessing the individual elements. And now you have a short exercise. So give me a moment and I'll write out the exercise for you. I hope that went well. Now let's go to the solution. The first exercise says we should access the lowercase letter in the hot list object. That's we want to access this to lower y. Well, something we can do is firstly print out the odd list, and now we see the whole lists that we have. I want to access to lower, which is this, to lower y. Yeah. So one way to go about this is firstly to get our object. We know it's part of object 2. We can confirm that by checking the length, and we see it is 2. So it's part of object 2. Object 2, we have this, we have 5.5, and this is what we want. So we simply take this, and here we have it. We've accessed the lower version of our y vector. Now the other one says we should access where we have my math times 2. This object, which is also part of the second index, that's the second list here. And we're interested in my maths, and that's index number 3. So we have this. Quite easy. The magics we can make with the square brackets. Okay. Then the last question is, what would odd list return when we have this? I'll simply copy this. And it says, what would this return? Let's check what that would do. We have 1. Then a good question is, can we explain how we got 1? Let's see. First we subset it into this vector, which we have here. Then subset it, then we have 1. So if this is 3, we have 3. I hope that is clear. That's all for now. I will see you in the next lesson where we convert from one data structure to the other.